Welcome to the BWWP, Peace Place for Me video broadcast.
Welcome to Peace Place for Me, a virtual connection where the contagious love of Jesus Christ abides and thrives. We are an exclusive community of purpose to enhance and expand spiritual and holistic growth to advance the kingdom of God. Thank you for joining us today as we enter a time of sharing with Pastor and Chaplain Tracy Mack in this virtual, interfaith inclusive, and purpose-filled community. Let's listen in.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Peace Place for Me. I did just do a little preliminary welcome, but I want to say welcome to Peace Place, not only for me, for you, for us. As pastor and chaplain of not just this community, but in other organizations and to some people at large, I am grateful for Peace Place for Me, a Christ-conscious spiritual community where we educate, encourage, and edify. And I'm glad to be here. Last time we got together, we talked about the power of a pause, and I hope you all have had the opportunity to actually do that thing, the power in a pause. And we talked about checking in, checking up, and checking on. When we go to the doctor's office, we check in at the kiosk. But sometimes that's where people stop in life. They just check in at the kiosk. But that's not the appointment. The appointment is when you get checked on, the evaluation, taking time when the doctor comes in and your vitals are checked by the assistant, and the doctor asks you different questions. So make sure that when you're doing the power and the pause, that you don't stop at the kiosk and just check in, but go ahead into the part where you get checked on and you you check up, you get the checkup where you check up from the neck up and you get evaluated and you take time. And if it takes somebody coming in with a specialty to help you, and then check on where you get to follow up and you get to do things for yourself, whether it be there's some regimens you need to do, some medication you need to take. So that's what we talked about the last time. And then we also talked about pivoting. And I don't know why alliteration is sticking with me, but we did the pause and the pivot last time. And today I want to share with y'all about being picked, prepared, preserved, and Providence. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them today, but I want to start out. It's my intention to get to as many of them as God and time will allow. And so when we think about being picked, what it was, I was considering, usually this time of year, and I think last year I even talked about this, that considering this time of year, a lot of things happen in the shift in fall and autumn. It's my favorite time of year. I usually take a ride west. Either anytime you go west, living in Raleigh and Wake County, when you go west and you get towards Greensboro and Winston-Salem and you keep going in Asheville, you can take a ride around early November, the last week in October or the first week in November, and the leaves, provided if we've had a great summer and there was no drought, the leaves, all the different brilliant colors, the burgundies, the pinks, the browns, the golds. And I remember 2 years ago this time, I slammed my finger in a car door behind a tree. I mean, it was because of a tree. I saw a tree that the leaves were so golden and it looked like metallic gold. And I already wasn't feeling well. It was during the time I really had COVID pretty bad. And Owen was recovering from COVID, and I still wasn't doing all that great, but I wasn't in the hospital. And so I asked him just to take me to West for a ride so I could see the leaves. And we didn't get to as far as, we just got to Greensboro, and I got tired and I said, I can't, I need to go back home. And so we turned around at the Tanger outlet, and I saw a tree, and every leaf was the same color. You know, some trees, when they change, it's a gradual, some are green, some are, multicolor, and then the final color they're going to turn in before they fall off. But this tree, it seemed, for whatever I could see, every leaf was the exact same color, and it looked metallic gold the way the sun hit it, and it was the most beautiful thing. So I got out of the car but Owen was the way he was driving, we were kind of in the street. We weren't quite in a parking space. And making the split-second decision. Should I get all the way out and close the door, or just lean out, and any car that comes, maybe it'll give us the grace and not honk the horn? Should I just lean out and take the picture and get back in? Well, in that time, I was kind of betwixt between. Plus, I wasn't feeling well at all. Breathing was all jacked up, whatever. And I went to go get out and slammed my finger in the door and broke my finger in a couple places, which is healed. See, it's healed. I still wear, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But in that, seeing how the seasons change has always been something I have loved. But one thing I do, and is, I don't know if it's a lost art or just I'm not around those people that do, especially people who live in the country, where they preserve things. I usually this time of year will go ahead and prepare stuff to make chicken soup that I freeze for the winter, chili that I prepare and freeze, and something else. Oh, pie fillings. I start making pie fillings in October. That will be for, and I freeze. That'll be for Thanksgiving. That'll be for Christmas. And so different things. And I noticed that people don't pause to do those things much anymore. Like I said, it's a lost art. But when we're talking about being prepared, I mean, being picked, prepared, preserved, and providence, the word pick, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but just so we're on the same page, means to take hold of and remove a flower, fruit, vegetable, or whatever from what's growing, to choose something from a number of alternatives. So we can think about it from a place of fruit. And I know that in scripture, we talk about that we're supposed to bear fruit, and we should, and a fruit in its season, which means a whole lot of things. I'm not going to get into all of that, but it's such a beautiful thing to talk when something is in season. And sometimes in life, we feel like we're being picked on. But I like to say that any person that's bearing fruit, people are going to pick from you. That's just the setup. The thing of it is, who do you allow to do the picking? But people are supposed to pick from you when you're bearing fruit. You should be something that in season, because you ain't got fruit all the time, because you're gonna allow yourself to go through winter. But being picked to take hold of something and remove it from a number of alternatives, typically very carefully. Fruit is harvested in different ways. I don't know. I was just telling someone the other day that blueberries are on a tree, and how they harvest it. They put a tarp around the base of the tree, and there's this machine that come and shake the mess out of that tree until the blueberries fall to the ground. Strawberries, you have to pick those individually. Oranges on a tree, apples. And so knowing the fruit that needs to be picked. And so when it comes to the preparation, that we're preparing for something. Sometimes we don't know what we're preparing for. Sometimes we know I need to do this because I don't know what's going to happen. That's what insurance is about. That just in case this happens, sometimes insurance is a ripoff, because I'd be like, I've been paying all these premiums and I ain't had no accident in umpty years, and y'all will never give me nothing back. But it's there for a purpose, So, but we're prepared to make ready. The word prepare means to make ready someone or something, to be able to do something, to make ready beforehand, before an activity or a purpose. But where I really want to sit at today, we talked about picked, we talked about prepare, is to preserve. And pick and prepare are necessary before you get to the preservation part. Because to prepare is to keep something safe from injury, harm, or destruction, to protect, to keep something alive, intact, and free from decay, to maintain, to keep it and save it from decomposition, such as pickling, canning, for future use, to keep something up for future use, for personal use and preservation. So when we talk about preserving, and the song we just listened to, Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. That's something that's a prayer, not just a song, but that's a prayer. If you just, Lord, prepare me. But do we let God prepare us? Because I don't know how, I haven't canned or pickled anything since a child. And I was assisting, or should I say about maybe 10, 11 years old. And it was a lady in Jacksonville who we used to go to church with, and she had great preserved jellies and stuff. And I used to go to her house after church or in between church services. And she had a big old pecan tree, and she'd make me and the other kids she let come to her house get out there and pick them pecans. I'm like, she ain't just bringing us over here because she like us, even though she did, but she also would get us to go out there and gather them pecans off the ground. But she also used to preserve. And the meticulous things about it is she would always say, you got to pick your fruit in season. Pick it when it's ripe and pick what's most readily available. So she would go strawberry picking, she would get peaches and have those things and preserve them for future use, because in the winter, and then sometimes if it and then you got to add a little pectin in blueberries, acid in blueberries, because they don't have a lot of acid, so you got to add a little lemon juice and blueberries so they'll gel right. And these are just things that I just recall. But a lot of times when we think about God preserving us and preparing us, do we make ourselves readily available to be picked? For God to pick some things off of us so he can use them for future use? Or are we and allowing other people to consume everything that we produce? Are we so stuck in consumerism or trying to prove ourselves that every time we produce something, we consume it? Are we allowing some things, some of the ripest, most pure? And then when you're pickling or preserving anything, and I'm getting off, maybe this is a great example to stay right here when it comes to preserving food, because it's visual and it's everybody eats, so we can kind of understand it. But when you're talking about pickling and preserving and those type of things, the fruit has to be clean. You're going to pick it. You're going to prepare it. I know when I do chili, the hardest part of making chili is cutting up the vegetables, because the crock pot does all the work. But because you got to get your peppers and your onions. And I usually do 2 batches. So you're talking about maybe 8 to 10 bell peppers, maybe 8 to 10 medium-sized onions, because I'm making a huge batch. Because not only when you preserve something, do you allow it for your future use, but you can give it away. But the hardest part, and even when I was trying to teach my daughter how to make chili, so that, because she loves it, and I said, you always want it, so you're going to help me make it. Because you have to cut it. You can't put some of these things in a food processor because it makes it too mushy. You want some stability and some girth to your chili. You want it hearty. You don't want to, well, some people do, but I prefer mine. I want to see the vegetables. When I make chicken soup, sometimes I don't want to see the carrots and stuff so much, but so some things you can't just put in a food processor. You have to cut. And a lot of times when we're talking about preserving things and being preserved, we don't want to take the time to pause to do the preparation so that we can be preserved. And it's amazing to me how a lot of things get lost because we don't pass down things. We don't take the time. We don't pause. Even when it comes to when some of us were children, and you sat on the floor between your mama, your aunt, or your sister's knees while they did your hair, and stories got passed down. What to do, hygiene stuff got passed down just in conversation. I don't recall anybody ever sitting me down in a chair and say, this is the way you do your hair. This is the way you wash dishes. This is the way you take care of yourself. This is the way you fold and hang out clothes. They showed you, but they had to take time. So in that pausing, reminiscing on the last time we got together, a lot of times the pausing will allow you to pick the right thing or be picked, and then to be prepared and preserved. Because in the process of preserving, there's a part where you have to make sure that you get boiled. There's a boiling that happens because you have to sterilize, or it's no good. You don't want to have toxins and botulism and stuff when you go to can or preserve something, so that when we're being preserved, it gets hot. And nobody likes the heat. Nobody likes to be preserved to the point where before it happens, you got the fruit there and you cutting up your jelly, your fruit for your jelly, and you're mixing sugar and all that kind of stuff. And even those things have to be cooked before they are preserved. And sometimes we run away from the heat, but the heat is necessary so we don't get bacteria. We run away from the pain, even though it's not something we want. Sometimes pain is the process, the purification. Even when gold, when it's dug out the ground, it's dirty. But the process of it being, put in that kiln or whatever they put it in, and then you slough the top off to get all the impurities out. I have a ring, and it's bot gold, which is 22 karat gold. I only have one, and it's from Thailand. And I don't wear the ring a lot because it's so yellow. The gold is so, and it's soft. But the gold is so yellow, it doesn't look real because most people are used to seeing 14 karat gold or 10 karat gold. So when I wear it up against my other gold, it looks fake. And that's another thing. Sometimes something can be so pure that when you compare it to something else, it looks fake because we're so used to seeing something of lesser quality. I remember my mom worked at the bank for years. She worked at First Citizens Bank for years. And she was, she was one of the first Black tellers to get the position that she got. And she was even offered assistant branch manager position at one time, but she chose to leave the job and go full-time in ministry with my dad. But even in that, when she told me the story, but then I worked at Wachovia Bank for a little while when I was in college for about maybe 5 months, and how they teach you to recognize counterfeit. You don't recognize counterfeit by looking at counterfeit. You know the real. You touch the real. You feel the real so much that when the counterfeit comes across your hand, you know it ain't real. You look at it, you observe it, you study it. Now money and counterfeiters are so, them jokers are smart now. I don't know if that lesson still works because of the way that money is, but you can hold money up. Now they hold it up to the light and there's this little thin strip that authenticates if the bill is real. But you holding up something that's pure to something that's not. So in going back to preserves, you can, and then no shade on jellies and jams that you can buy from the store, Smuckers, Welch's, or whatever, and they come in jars. Jelly, that's just sugar, whatever. But when you buy preserves from the store, I'm telling you, it's nothing like homemade preserves. It's nothing like getting you a hot biscuit and spreading some peach preserves on it, or some peach marmalade, or some strawberry jam on it. It ain't nothing like the store. So sometimes we're out here comparing ourselves, trying to be like what's on the shelf. What's on the shelf in the store, everybody got access to. But you have been picked. Something came along and said, I want this one. Doesn't necessarily make you any better than the other ones, but we ain't worried about that right now. We just zoning in on you. Something about you, the Spirit of God came along and said, I want this one because it has this, because it has this, because it has that. And then taking time to clean that thing up, taking time to wash you, and then to get you to a place where not to cut you in pain, but to divide you up and put a little sugar in you to get you prepared and to boil you. To not only so the ingredients combine better in heat, so the sugar ain't granulated when somebody goes to chew it, and get that thing and boil it and preserve it. Because even I went to I ain't gave you no scripture, but hopefully you can feel them. But I did I got more paper here than I got time. But even when we talk about preserve is mentioned in the Bible, in the King James Version, over 30 times. I think 30 times the word preserve, and then you got preserving, preserved with a period, preserveth, using that old vernacular. But and I use the new Revised Standard. But when it talks about preserving, the Lord shall preserve thee. Think about everything I just said about preserving: the heat, the being picked, the being prepared. In Psalms 121:7, the Lord shall preserve thee from evil. Proverbs 2:11, discretion shall preserve thee, understand and keep thee. Psalm 16:1, preserve me, O God, for in thee do I put my trust. Psalms 25:21, let integrity and upright preserve me. David was going off, wasn't he? And then even in Proverbs, Solomon went off. Mercy and truth preserve the king. His throne is upholden by mercy. Proverbs 4:6, forsake her not. He shall preserve and keep thee, and love her, and she shall keep thee. Psalms, back to Psalm 61 and 7. He shall abide before God forever. Oh, prepare me with mercy and truth. Those things mean something, to be prepared. And so we need to, or should I say, I encourage us to get to a place where you don't mind God picking some things. Don't consume, don't allow everything you are to be consumed by life and time and busyness and trying to get that bag. Allow some things, those special things that are the most ripe, that can be picked to be prepared to be preserved. And that is our effort, because everything, God is sovereign. And even in the preparation, because I've known, thank God it hasn't happened in my life, people to preserve and plan and even slaughter meat, and they preserve it and put it in the freezer and then have a power outage and it all fail. But the effort has to be put there, because ultimately we're going to be depending on the providence of God. That's where it all lies. But the providence of God will allow you and talk to you on how to keep yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people want to put everything on whatever. God gonna do whatever he wants to do. And that is absolutely true. But God will talk to you and give you those keys and those signals and those forethoughts about what to do. Because providence, it just means divine guidance and care that God conceived as the power sustaining our human destiny. So ultimately, everything is up to God. But as God's little g, we have the power to pause so that we can be picked, so that we can be prepared, and so we can be preserved. So think about it. And not only in that, and I like to always establish what I call a sacred question when we get together. When we're being picked and prepared and preserved, what are we being picked, prepared, and preserved for? And I know I've said a lot, but I hope the canning and the preserving process kind of helps us get a mental picture on that's how we deal with ourselves, that we don't consume everything we produce because we won't have enough for later. And it may take time, but preparation is not lost time. Jose Perez, Ambassadors of Christ, circa 1986, 87. Preparation is not lost time. And even in that, sometimes when you're being prepared, you feel like you're being delayed. But no don't mean never, because yes don't mean always. So taking time to prepare, take time to cut those vegetables up nicely. So that right now, I mean, in the summertime, everybody want to be outside. And that's a thing on social media. We outside. Well, sometimes you need to carry your tail inside every now and then, so you can get those fruits and vegetables when they're ripe, those things about you when they're ripe for the picking. Whether you're a blueberry and it's a shaking. I know I felt like a blueberry tree for about 2 years now. Where, like I said, they lay that tarp on the ground and that machine comes and shakes that tree and the blueberries fall, and then they pull the blueberries up on the tarp and go and wash them. Even cranberries, think about it. But if we're fruit, the fruit of the spirit, it's one fruit that manifests itself through love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. So we shouldn't say, I'm just going to be love, I'm just going to be temperance, I'm just going to be. We need to become all things, that we're one fruit that manifests itself in different ways. Galatians 5:22 and 23. The fruit of the spirit, one fruit. So when we think about us being one fruit, God picked me. God picked you. God picked me. But when we say, God, pick me. God, prepare me. The song, prepare me to be a sanctuary. God, preserve me. Because when I allow you to do all that, I experience the providence of God in a much sweeter way. That when wintertime comes, when famine comes, I have been picked, preserved, and I've been picked, prepared, and preserved so I can experience providence like no other. I hope you have got something out of what I've shared with you today, and that it will bless you real good in your being picked, prepared, preserved, so you can experience the divine providence of God. I'm Tracy Mack. I'm grateful and I love y'all for real, for real. Much love and peace.
Thank you for listening to Peace Place for Me, a place of peace for you. On behalf of Pastor and Chaplain Tracy Mack, we hope you enjoyed today's sharing and the blessed time spent together. We want to express our gratitude in advance for the generous gifts you have chosen to share for the benefit of our community. We hope to fellowship with you the next time we come together on 2nd and 4th Sundays, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. For access to join our virtual meetings, email us at peace@blackwomensworld.com. That is, peace@blackwomensworld.com. Or visit our website at peaceplaceforme.com. Until next time, peace and blessings to you.